Commander Zethkalar pressed her six-fingered hand against the control panel. Her ship, the Void Seeker, moved slowly through the empty space where Earth's sun once burned. Nothing lived here now. The entire Sol system was dead, just like the history book said it would be. "Commander, we found something," called out her science officer, Nextar. His blue skin glowed with excitement as he stared at his instruments. "There's an object floating near where the third planet used to be." Zethkalar walked over to look at the screens. Her tall, thin body moved with the grace that all Calaxians had. She had been exploring dead worlds for 30 years, but this system always made her feel strange. Something about humans had always interested her, even though they had been gone for 800 years. "What kind of object?" she asked. "It looks like a data storage device. Very old, but still working. The quantum field around it is still active." Nextar's voice was filled with wonder. "Commander, this thing has been floating here since the humans died. How is it still working after all this time?" Zethkalar thought about this. Human technology was supposed to be simple and weak. That's what every teacher in the galaxy told their students. Humans were a young species that got too aggressive too fast. The Hegemony Coalition had to destroy them before they became dangerous. It was sad but necessary. "Bring it aboard," she ordered. "But be careful. Use the isolation chamber." The crew worked for 2 hours to get the device safely onto their ship. It was about the size of Zethkalar's head, made of some metal that their computers couldn't identify. Strange symbols covered its surface. Human writing, probably. In the isolation chamber, the device sat on a white table under bright lights. Zethkalar and her team gathered around it. Their ship's computer was trying to understand the device's programming. "It's encrypted," said Velona, their computer specialist. Her green eyes were wide with surprise. "Commander, this encryption is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not just complex, it's beautiful. Like someone wrote poetry and mathematics. Can you break it?" Zethkalar asked. "Maybe, but it might take days. Or weeks. This code is incredibly advanced." Velona paused. "Commander, how could a primitive species create something like this?" Zethkalar didn't answer. She was starting to wonder if the stories about humans were completely true. Every school child in the galaxy knew the basic facts. Humans were violent, humans were dangerous, humans had to be stopped before they hurt innocent people. The Hegemony Coalition fought a war against them and won. End of story, but this device suggested something different. This wasn't the work of a primitive species. After 6 days of work, Velona finally cracked the encryption. The device came to life with a soft humming sound. A hologram appeared above it, the image of a human woman in a military uniform. "If you are seeing this message," the human said, "then our species is gone and you have found our final gift to the galaxy." Zethkalar felt her skin go cold. The human's voice was calm, but her eyes were filled with sadness and something else, something that looked like warning. "My name is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Council. This message contains the true story of what happened between humanity and the Hegemony Coalition. We know that history will be written by the winners. We know they will make us look like monsters. But someone needs to know the truth." The hologram paused. Admiral Chen looked directly at Zethkalar, as if she could see across 800 years of time. "We were not monsters. We were not evil. We were just people who refused to kneel. And we want you to know the real cost of what the hegemony did to us. More importantly, we want you to know what we did to them." Nextar moved closer to the device. "Commander, how did she know someone would find this? How did she know we would be able to decode it?" "I don't know," Zethkalar whispered. She was starting to feel very uncomfortable. The hologram continued. "This message contains our complete historical records, our military reports, and our final strategy documents. Everything the hegemony tried to hide from the galaxy. Everything they don't want you to know." Admiral Chen's expression grew harder. "You see, the hegemony made a mistake when they declared war on us. They thought we would fight like every other species they had conquered. They thought we would try to win." Zethkalar felt confused. "What does that mean?" "But we didn't try to win," Admiral Chen continued as if answering her question. "We had a different goal entirely. We had 8 billion people on our homeworld. We had colonies on 47 planets. We had dreams of exploring the galaxy and making friends with other species." The Admiral's voice became quiet and sad. "The hegemony took all of that away from us. So we decided to take something away from them." The hologram flickered for a moment, then stabilized. "We decided to make sure that the cost of destroying us would break them, even if it meant breaking ourselves first." Velona looked at her instruments. "Commander, there's much more data here. Thousands of hours of recordings, military plans, battle reports, personal messages from human soldiers. How much more? Sethkalar asked. Enough to keep us busy for months. Admiral Chen spoke again. To whoever finds this message, you need to understand what really happened here. Not the lies the hegemony told. Not the stories they made up to justify genocide. The truth. The hologram looked sad now. We hope that our sacrifice meant something. We hope that other species learned from what we did. We hope that the cost we made the hegemony pay will make them think twice before they destroy another innocent world. Admiral Chen saluted. This is Admiral Sarah Chen signing off. Remember us not as the monsters they said we were, but as the people who refused to let evil go unpunished. The cost of war will break you. That was our promise to the hegemony. This recording will show you how we kept that promise. The hologram disappeared. The device went quiet. Sethkalar stood in the silence for a long time. Her crew waited for orders, but she couldn't speak. Everything she thought she knew about human history was suddenly questionable. Commander? Nextar said softly. What do we do? Sethkalar looked at the device. Inside it were secrets that someone had gone to incredible trouble to preserve. Secrets that someone had hidden for 800 years, waiting for the right person to find them. We learned the truth, she said finally. Start with the first historical record. I want to know everything. As her crew began to work, Sethkalar couldn't stop thinking about Admiral Chen's words. The humans hadn't tried to win their war against the hegemony. They had tried to do something else entirely. What could be more important than winning a war for your own survival? She was about to find out. The first historical record began to play 3 hours later. Sethkalar and her crew watched as Earth appeared on their screens. The blue and green planet looked so alive, so beautiful. It was hard to believe that this world was now nothing but space dust. The recording showed a large meeting room filled with humans. They all looked nervous and scared. At the front of the room stood a woman with short gray hair and kind eyes. The subtitle identified her as President Maria Santos of the United Earth Government. Citizens of Earth, President Santos said, today we received a message from the stars. We are not alone in the universe. Sethkalar watched as the humans in the room began to whisper excitedly to each other. Some looked happy. Others looked worried. None of them knew what was coming. The recording switched to show the alien message that Earth had received. A tall, proud-looking creature appeared on screen. Sethkalar recognized the species immediately. A Thraxian, one of the founding members of the Hegemony Coalition. Greetings, humans of Earth, the Thraxian said. His voice was cold and formal. I am Lord Commander Vaxthal of the Hegemony Coalition. We have been watching your species for some time. The Thraxian's 4 arms moved as he spoke. Your people have developed faster than expected. You have nuclear weapons. You have space travel. You have shown signs of the aggressive behavior that marks all dangerous species. Sethkalar felt uncomfortable. She had heard these words before in history classes, but seeing them from the human perspective made them sound different, more threatening. Therefore, Vaxthal continued, we offer you a choice. Join the Hegemony Coalition as a client species, accept our guidance and live in peace under our protection, or reject our offer and face the consequences. The recording showed President Santos's face growing pale. Around her, the other humans looked terrified. You have 30 Earth days to decide, Vaxthal said. Choose wisely, the message ended. The recording switched back to the meeting room where chaos had broken out. Humans were shouting, crying, arguing. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. President Santos raised her hand for silence. We need to think about this carefully, she said. We need to consider all our options. The recording jumped forward several days. Now it showed a different meeting room, this one filled with military officers. At the head of the table sat a younger version of Admiral Sarah Chen. The mathematics are simple, Admiral Chen said, pointing to charts and graphs on the wall. They have 10,000 warships. We have 200. They control thousands of star systems. We control one. In a direct fight, we lose. An older general raised his hand. Then we surrender. We become a client species. It's better than extinction. Is it? Admiral Chen asked. I've been studying the hegemony's client species. The Veltari used to be master engineers. Now they're only allowed to build simple tools. The Kixanal were explorers who mapped half the galaxy. Now they're not allowed to leave their home system. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth's cities stretch to the horizon. Client species don't get to be themselves anymore. They become whatever the hegemony wants them to be. Their children grow up as strangers to their own culture. But they're alive, the general said, are they? Admiral Chen turned back to face the room. Or are they just breathing? The recording jumped again. Now it showed President Santos and Admiral Chen standing together in what looked like a government office. The people are scared, Sarah, President Santos said. Half of them want to surrender. The other half want to fight a war we can't win. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. What if winning isn't the point? What do you mean? What if our goal isn't to survive this war, but to make sure the hegemony regrets starting it? President Santos looked confused. Sarah, that's suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way to send a message that will protect other species in the future. Admiral Chen moved to a map of the galaxy. Look at this. The hegemony controls most of known space. They've conquered or absorbed hundreds of species, but they've never faced serious resistance, she pointed to Earth. What if we showed them what resistance really costs? What if we made them pay such a high price for destroying us that they'll think twice before attacking the next species they encounter? President Santos was quiet for a long time. You're talking about sacrificing our entire civilization. I'm talking about making our sacrifice count for something. The recording shifted to show the final meeting of Earth's leaders. 24 hours remained until they had to give their answer to the hegemony. Admiral Chen stood at the podium. Behind her sat representatives from every nation on Earth. The room was completely silent. We have 3 choices, she said. We can surrender and hope the hegemony treats us kindly. We can fight a conventional war and be destroyed quickly, or we can fight an unconventional war that will destroy us slowly but cost them dearly. She paused. I believe the third option serves the greater good. If we make the hegemony pay a terrible price for our destruction, maybe they'll be more careful about destroying others. An elderly woman raised her hand. Admiral, you're asking us to vote for our own extinction? No, Admiral Chen replied. I'm asking you to vote for a meaningful extinction. One that protects other innocents in the galaxy. The vote was close. 51% chose Admiral Chen's plan. 49% wanted to surrender. The recording showed the final message that Earth sent to the hegemony. Admiral Chen stood alone in a communication room, facing the camera that would broadcast her words across space. Lord Commander Vaxthul, she said, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Council. We have considered your offer. Her voice was calm and steady. We decline to become a client species. We also decline to surrender our freedom. However, we do not seek war with your people. Admiral Chen stepped closer to the camera. But if you choose to make war upon us, understand this. We will not fight like the other species you have conquered. We will not try to win. We will try to make you pay, she paused. The cost of war will break you, Lord Commander. Even if it breaks us first. That is our promise, the message ended. The recording showed Admiral Chen turning off the communication device, then sitting down in a chair. For the first time, she looked small and tired. God help us all, she whispered. Back on the Void Seeker, Zethkalar felt sick. She had always been taught that humans started the war, that they were aggressive and threatened peaceful species. But this recording showed something completely different. Commander, Nextar said quietly, the humans didn't want war. No, Zethkalar replied. They didn't. Velona was checking her instruments. There's more, Commander. Battle records. Military reports. It looks like the war lasted for 24 years. Zethkalar thought about what Admiral Chen had said. The humans hadn't tried to win. They had tried to make the hegemony pay. Continue the playback, she ordered. I want to see how they kept their promise. The battle records began with the hegemony's first attack on Earth's outer colonies. Zethkalar watched as massive alien warships appeared near the human settlement on Kepler 442b. The colonists there had 3 days to prepare for the assault. What happened next surprised everyone on the Void Seeker. The humans didn't try to defend the colony in any normal way. Instead, they did something no other species had ever done before. They destroyed everything valuable on the planet before the hegemony could take it. The recording showed human civilians working frantically to demolish their own cities. They burned their farms, collapsed their mines, and poisoned their water supplies. When the hegemony forces landed, they found a world with nothing worth taking, but that wasn't the end of it. As the hegemony troops explored the empty colony, human soldiers emerged from hidden bunkers. They didn't try to fight a battle they couldn't win. Instead, They attacked the hegemony supply ships and support vessels. Admiral Chen's voice provided commentary over the battle footage. The enemy expects us to defend our ground. Instead, we give them worthless ground and attack their ability to stay here. A single human fighter pilot managed to destroy a hegemony supply ship, carrying food and equipment for 5,000 soldiers. The pilot died in the attack, but those soldiers would now have to be supplied from another star system, hundreds of light years away. Every small victory costs them more than it costs us, Admiral Chen explained. They have to bring everything from far away. We just have to make it expensive for them to stay. The pattern continued across 12 human colonies. The hegemony won every battle, but each victory was hollow. They conquered empty worlds and faced constant attacks on their supply lines. After 6 months of this, Lord Commander Vaxthul sent another message to Earth. His proud face now looked frustrated and angry. "Humans," he said, "your resistance is pointless. You cannot win. Surrender now and we will be merciful." Admiral Chen's reply was broadcast to the entire galaxy. "Lord Commander, you don't understand. We're not trying to win. We're trying to teach you something." The war escalated. The hegemony committed more ships, more troops, more resources. But the humans adapted their tactics to match. When the hegemony attacked the mining colony on Tau Ceti, the humans there did something incredible. They turned their entire planet into a weapon. The recording showed human engineers working for weeks to destabilize the planet's core. As the hegemony fleet approached, they triggered a massive earthquake that split the planet's surface open. Molten rock shot into space, destroying 17 hegemony ships. Every human on Tau Ceti died, but they took 3,000 enemy soldiers and crew members with them. "Madness," whispered Nextar as he watched the recording. "They killed themselves just to hurt their enemies." But Admiral Chen's strategy logs explained the logic. The enemy must learn that attacking us is more expensive than leaving us alone. Every victory must cost them more than defeat would cost us. Zeth Kaller began to understand the human plan. They weren't fighting to save their civilization. They were fighting to make destroying their civilization too expensive to be worth it. The recording showed battle after battle, each more desperate than the last. Human soldiers would rather die than be captured, because dead soldiers couldn't be used as forced labor. Human colonies would rather destroy themselves than become hegemony factories. At the Battle of Wolf 359, the humans used their own civilians as weapons. A passenger ship full of colonists pretended to surrender, then rammed itself into a hegemony command vessel. Both ships were destroyed, but the hegemony lost their fleet admiral and his entire staff. "They're not fighting like soldiers," observed Valona. "They're fighting like people who have nothing left to lose." "That's exactly what they are," Zeth Kalar replied. The war's turning point came when the humans attacked the hegemony's industrial world of Nexus Prime. Instead of trying to conquer the planet, they did something unprecedented. Admiral Chen herself led the attack. Her flagship, the Earth's Vengeance, carried a weapon that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before, a device that could cause a star to become unstable. The battle recordings showed the device being launched toward Nexus Prime's sun. Admiral Chen broadcast a message to the entire hegemony fleet. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen," she said. "You have 10 minutes to evacuate the system before your star becomes a weapon." The hegemony commander laughed at her. "Impossible. No species has the technology to weaponize a star." "You're right," Admiral Chen replied. "No species has ever been desperate enough to develop such technology. But we are." 8 minutes later, Nexus Prime's star began to pulse with dangerous energy. The hegemony fleet tried to destroy the device, but it was too late. The star exploded in a controlled burst that sterilized everything within 12 light years. Nexus Prime was gone. 3 other hegemony worlds and nearby systems were also destroyed. The industrial capacity of an entire sector had been eliminated in a single attack. But Admiral Chen and her entire fleet were also gone, vaporized in the stellar explosion they had created. The recording showed Lord Commander Vaxthul receiving the news. For the first time, he looked genuinely frightened. "How many ships did we lose?" he asked his aide. "The entire 5th Fleet, sir. 3,000 vessels, plus the industrial worlds. Sir, they destroyed 12 years' worth of ship production in one attack." Vaxthul was quiet for a long moment. "How many humans did that cost them?" "About 50,000, sir. One fleet. They traded 50,000 of their people for 3,000 of ours." Vaxthul said slowly. Plus our industrial capacity. The recording shifted to show a secret meeting of hegemony leaders. They were discussing the costs of the war, and the numbers were shocking. In 2 years of fighting, the humans had lost 47 colonies and 4 billion people. But the hegemony had lost 200 ships, 6 industrial worlds, and countless resources trying to supply their forces across dozens of star systems. The mathematics are becoming problematic, admitted one hegemony general. Every victory costs us more than the last. Then we end this quickly, Vaxthul declared. Full-scale assault on Earth itself. Use every ship we have. But Admiral Chen had been planning for this moment. The recordings revealed her final strategy. Operation Last Stand. When the hegemony's entire remaining fleet arrived at Earth, they found the planet defended by only a few dozen human ships. It looked like an easy victory, but appearances were deceiving. The humans had spent months preparing Earth itself as a trap. As the hegemony fleet entered the solar system, Admiral Chen's replacement, Admiral Reese, sent a final message. "Welcome to our home system," he said. "We hope you enjoy your stay. It will be brief." Earth's moon exploded first, turned into a massive kinetic weapon that destroyed the lead elements of the hegemony fleet. Then the orbital defense platforms revealed themselves, not as defenses but as giant bombs designed to damage as many enemy ships as possible. But the real surprise was Earth itself. The humans had spent months preparing their homeworld for destruction. As the hegemony forces closed in, they triggered devices all across the planet. Earth's core destabilized. The planet began to tear itself apart, creating an expanding field of deadly debris and radiation. Any ship that got too close was destroyed. In 6 hours, Earth went from a living world to an expanding cloud of radioactive death. It took the entire hegemony fleet with it. The last human fleet hiding behind Jupiter watched their homeworld die. Admiral Reese sent one final transmission. "Earth is gone," he said, "but we're not finished yet. The cost of war will break you, remember? We still have more to teach you." On the Void Seeker, Zethkalar felt overwhelmed. The humans had destroyed their own homeworld just to eliminate their enemies, but somehow some humans had survived. "How many more battles were there?" she asked. Valona checked her instruments. According to these records, the war continued for another 20 years. 20 years? But Earth was gone. Where did the humans live? "They didn't live anywhere," Valona said quietly. "They just kept fighting." The recordings from the final 20 years of war were different from everything before. The humans no longer had a home. They lived entirely on their ships, moving from system to system like ghosts. But they had become something more dangerous than any army. They had become an idea. Admiral Reese commanded the last human fleet from a ship called Final Light. The fleet was small, maybe 50 vessels carrying the last million humans in the universe. But they moved through space like a plague, appearing wherever the hegemony least expected them. The recording showed their first attack after Earth's destruction. The hegemony supply depot at Rigel was supposed to be completely safe, protected by 3 defense platforms and a patrol fleet. The humans arrived in the middle of the night cycle, when most of the garrison was sleeping. They didn't try to capture anything. They didn't try to hold ground. They simply destroyed everything they could reach and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. The entire depot, food, weapons, fuel for 100 worlds, went up in flames. "We are no longer fighting for territory," Admiral Reese explained in his personal log. "We are fighting to make the enemy afraid of the dark." The hegemony tried to hunt down the human fleet, but it was like trying to catch smoke. The humans knew they were outnumbered and outgunned, so they never fought fair. They hit supply convoys, destroyed communication stations, and sabotaged mining operations. Every attack cost the hegemony more than it cost the humans. When they destroyed a human ship, they lost equipment worth 1,000 times more. The humans had learned to fight like pirates, but pirates with nothing left to lose. Lord Commander Vaxthul was no longer the proud, confident leader he had been at the start of the war. The recording showed him in his command center, surrounded by maps covered in red marks showing destroyed hegemony facilities. "How many ships have we lost this month?" he asked his aide. 47, sir, plus 3 supply depots and a communication relay." "And how many human ships did we destroy?" 2, sir. Vaxthul closed his eyes. "At this rate, they'll run out of ships before we run out of resources." But not by much. The war was breaking the hegemony's economy. They had to protect supply lines across thousands of star systems. They had to rebuild destroyed facilities constantly. They had to keep large fleets in areas where humans might attack, which meant fewer ships available for expansion or trade. But worse than the economic damage was the psychological damage. The recordings showed hegemony soldiers and civilians becoming more and more afraid. The humans had become monsters in their minds, creatures who appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and disappeared like nightmares. On the worlds that the hegemony had conquered before the war, something unexpected began to happen. Other species started to resist. The Veltari, who had been peaceful client species for 200 years, began sabotaging hegemony factories. The Kixnal started hiding ships and refusing to deliver cargo. The Zephyrins, who had always been loyal, began asking questions about independence. The human example is spreading, reported one hegemony intelligence officer. Conquered species are beginning to believe that resistance is possible. Admiral Reese received these reports with grim satisfaction. "Our real victory isn't military," he recorded in his log. "Our real victory is showing the galaxy that the hegemony can be hurt. That they're not invincible gods, just bullies who can be made to bleed." The humans began coordinating with resistance movements on conquered worlds. They couldn't save these species, but they could teach them how to make the hegemony pay for oppressing them. The Battle of Canopus marked the beginning of the end. The hegemony had decided to make an example of the Veltari homeworld, which had become too rebellious. They sent a fleet to destroy the planet's major cities. The human fleet was waiting for them. Admiral Reese had somehow learned about the hegemony's plan. His ships emerged from hiding just as the enemy fleet reached Canopus. The battle that followed was the largest naval engagement since Earth's destruction. The humans were still outnumbered 10-1, but they fought with the desperate skill of people who knew they were already dead. They used the planet's gravity well as a weapon, slingshot their ships around the world to gain impossible speed. They rammed hegemony vessels with ships full of explosives. They turned their own fighter craft into guided missiles. When the battle ended, both fleets were mostly destroyed. The hegemony had lost another irreplaceable battle group. The humans had lost half their remaining ships. But the real victory was that the Veltari homeworld survived. For the first time since the war began, the hegemony had failed to complete a mission because of human interference. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans, a species that was supposed to be extinct, had saved another world from destruction. Suddenly, every oppressed species in hegemony space began to believe that freedom was possible. Rebellions broke out on dozens of worlds. The hegemony found itself fighting not just the humans, but half their own empire. They had to pull ships from the front lines to put down revolts in their own territory. This is what they planned from the beginning, Vaxthul realized. Reading intelligence reports about the spreading rebellions, they knew they couldn't defeat us militarily, so they turned our own subjects against us. The final human attack came 5 years later. Admiral Reese, now commanding only 12 ships and 30,000 people, led his fleet to the hegemony capital world of Thraxis Prime. The planet was defended by the largest military base in known space. Thousands of ships protected the homeworld of the species that ruled half the galaxy. It should have been impossible for such a small force to threaten it. But the humans no longer cared about possibility. Admiral Reese's final message was broadcast not just to the hegemony fleet, but to every world in the galaxy. He stood on the bridge of final light, looking older and more tired than any human should. "People of the galaxy," he said, "my name is Admiral Marcus Reese of the United Earth Defense Council. I am the last admiral of the last human fleet. In a few minutes, my people and I will be dead." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "But our deaths will have meaning. We came here to deliver one final lesson to the hegemony. We came here to show them the true cost of war." The recording switched to external cameras showing Reese's fleet approaching Thraxis Prime, the 12 human. Ships were tiny compared to the massive hegemony. "Defenders, the cost of war," Admiral Reese continued, "is not just in ships destroyed or lives lost. The cost of war is in fear, in broken trust, in the knowledge that violence creates more violence until everyone loses." His ships began their final attack. They moved like arrows shot from a bow, diving straight toward the planet's surface. The hegemony fleet tried to stop them, but the humans had one last surprise. Each human ship carried a device similar to the one that had destroyed Nexus Prime, but these were smaller, designed not to destroy a star but to destabilize a planet's core. "We don't seek to conquer you," Admiral Reese said as his ships broke through the planetary defenses. "We don't seek to rule you. We seek only to make you remember that freedom is worth dying for." The 12 devices reached Thraxus Prime's surface and activated simultaneously. The planet didn't explode like Earth had. Instead, it began to shake apart slowly, becoming uninhabitable but not immediately deadly. The hegemony leadership had time to evacuate, but their homeworld was lost forever. More importantly, their capital, the symbol of their power, was gone. Admiral Reese's final words echoed across the galaxy as his ship was destroyed by enemy fire. "The cost of war will break you. We promised you that 24 years ago. Today we have kept our promise. The last human fleet was gone. Every human in the universe was now dead. But on 1,000 worlds in 100 species, the rebellion continued. The hegemony had won their war against humanity, but in winning they had lost everything else." On the Void Seeker, Zethkalar watched the final recordings in stunned silence. The humans had been completely destroyed, but somehow they had also won. "Commander," Nextar said quietly. "What happened next? After the humans were gone?" Zethkalar looked at the device. There was still more data to review. "Let's find out." The final recordings were different from all the others. They came from hegemony sources, internal communications, military reports, and personal messages that the humans had somehow intercepted and preserved. They told the story of what happened after the last human died. The first recording showed Lord Commander Vaxthul standing before the Hegemony High Council 3 months after the destruction of Thraxus Prime. He looked like a broken man. His proud bearing was gone, replaced by the exhausted posture of someone who had won a war but lost everything else. "The human threat has been eliminated," he reported to the council. "All human ships have been destroyed. All human worlds are lifeless. The species is extinct." The council members should have been celebrating, but they weren't. They looked around the temporary meeting room they were using while their homeworld died slowly in space. "What about the rebellions?" asked Counselor Nithara, an elderly Thraxian with scarred hands. "The Veltari are still refusing to work in our factories. The Kixnal have declared independence. Half of our subject species are in open revolt." Vaxthul had no good answer. "We're working to restore order." "With what ships?" demanded another counselor. "We've lost 60% of our fleet fighting a species that was supposed to be primitive. Our shipyards are destroyed. Our supply lines are broken. Our own people are starting to question whether this war was worth it." The recording switched to show riots on the Thraxian colony world of New Thraxus. Hegemony citizens, not conquered species, but actual hegemony citizens, were protesting in the streets. They carried signs demanding an end to the military campaigns that had bankrupted their civilization. "Bring our children home," read one sign. "No more wars," read another. Vaxthul tried to address the riots with another speech, but his words rang hollow. "The sacrifice was necessary," he said. The humans were a threat to galactic peace, but even his own people no longer believed him. The recording showed Thraxian parents holding pictures of their children who had died fighting humans. They had won the war, but the victory felt empty. The economic reports were even worse than the military ones. The hegemony had spent nearly their entire treasury fighting a species with no treasury at all. They had destroyed their industrial capacity, trying to replace ships that humans kept destroying. They had exhausted their people's patience with a war that seemed to create more enemies than it eliminated. "We cannot afford another campaign like this," reported the hegemony's chief economist. "Our economy is in collapse. We need at least 50 years of peace just to rebuild what we've lost, but peace was not coming." The rebellions that the humans had inspired were spreading like wildfire across hegemony space. Every week brought news of another species declaring independence, another world refusing to pay taxes, another fleet mutinying rather than fight. The Kixnal were the first to successfully break free. They had learned from watching the humans. Instead of fighting conventional battles, they focused on making occupation too expensive. They sabotaged every hegemony facility on their worlds. They attacked supply convoys. They made it cost more to hold Kixnal space than it was worth. "They're using human tactics," reported a frustrated hegemony general. "They've learned to fight like the humans did." Within 5 years of humanity's extinction, a dozen species had gained independence. Within 10 years, the number had grown to 30. The hegemony still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. The recording showed the last meeting of the Hegemony High Council. Only half the seats were filled. The other councilors represented species that had either rebelled or simply stopped acknowledging hegemony authority. "We need to face reality," said Councilor Nathara. She was now the senior member of the council, since Vaxthul had died 2 years earlier, not in battle but from stress and exhaustion. "The Empire is over." "We still control 40 star systems," protested a younger councilor. 40 systems out of the 3,000 we controlled before the human war," Nathara replied. "And half of those are only loyal because they're afraid to rebel. Fear is not a foundation for lasting government." The recording shifted to show the official announcement. The Hegemony Coalition was dissolving itself. After 800 years of galactic dominance, the Empire was admitting defeat. But this wasn't defeat by conquest. It was defeat by exhaustion. The humans had made the cost of empire too high to bear. The final recording was a personal message from Councilor Nathara, recorded in her private chambers on the last day of the hegemony. She looked old and tired, but also somehow relieved. "I have been thinking about the humans," she said to the camera. "For years we told ourselves that they were monsters, that they were dangerous, that destroying them was necessary for galactic peace." She paused, looking out a window at the stars. "But I think we were wrong. I think they were just people who refused to kneel. And maybe that's something we should have respected instead of feared." Nathara turned back to the camera. "They kept their promise. They said the cost of war would break us, and it did. Not just militarily or economically, but morally. We became something ugly in fighting them. We became the monsters we claimed they were." She stood up and walked to a shelf filled with reports and documents. "These are the records of every species we conquered, every world we destroyed, every culture we erased in the name of peace and order. I used to think this was necessary. Now I wonder what the galaxy might have been like if we had tried to make friends instead of subjects." The old counselor looked directly into the camera. "To whoever finds this recording in the future, learn from our mistakes. Learn from the human sacrifice. Power built on fear and oppression will always be fragile. The humans showed us that. They made us pay for forgetting it." The recording ended. The device went quiet. Zethgalar sat in the silence for a long time. Around her, her crew waited for her to speak, but she couldn't find words. Everything she had been taught about galactic history was wrong. The Great Purge Wars hadn't been the hegemony expanding their power. They had been the hegemony's death throes as their empire collapsed under the weight of rebellion and resistance that the humans had inspired. The free galaxy that Zethgalar lived in, the democratic councils, the species cooperatives, the peaceful trade federations, existed only because humanity had shown everyone else that empires could be brought down. "Commander," Nextar said softly, "what do we do with this information?" Zethgalar looked at the device. Inside it was proof that the official history of the galaxy was a lie. Inside it was evidence that humanity's greatest victory had been their own destruction. "We tell the truth," she said finally. "We tell everyone the truth." Velona looked worried. "Commander, this will change everything." Every government in the galaxy teaches that the hegemony fell because they overextended themselves. If people learn that it was actually a rebellion inspired by human sacrifice, then maybe they'll remember that freedom is worth fighting for, Zethgalar finished. Maybe they'll remember that the cost of oppression can be made unbearable, even by people who have no hope of survival. She stood up and walked to the communication console. "Send a message to the Galactic Historical Society. Tell them we have evidence that will require them to rewrite their records." As her crew began to work, Zethgalar looked out at the empty space where Earth had once been. Somewhere in this emptiness 800 years ago, a species had made the ultimate sacrifice not to save themselves, but to save people they would never meet. Admiral Chen's final message echoed in her memory. "The cost of war will break you." The humans had been completely destroyed. Every last one of them was dead. Their worlds were gone. Their culture was extinct. Their very DNA had been scattered to the void, but they had won. They had won by losing everything. And in losing everything, they had given freedom to the galaxy. Every independent world, every democratic government, every species that chose its own path owed their liberty to people who had chosen extinction over submission. Zethgalar activated. the ship's communication system and began to compose a message that would change galactic history forever. To all free peoples of the galaxy, she began, "This is Commander Zeth Kalar of the research vessel Void Seeker. I am transmitting from the Sol system, where I have discovered proof of humanity's greatest victory. A victory won through total sacrifice, for the sake of people they would never meet." She looked at the device one more time. 800 years ago, humanity kept a promise. They said the cost of war would break their enemies. Today we live in the galaxy they died to create. It is time we remembered their sacrifice. The message began broadcasting to every inhabited world in known space. Soon everyone would know the truth about humanity's final gift to the galaxy. The cost of war had indeed broken the oppressors, and in breaking them, the humans had set everyone else free.